Before we get into the story, leave a comment and let us know what city you're watching from. And don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10 at the end. Enjoy the story. The cathedral bells were supposed to ring in exactly 12 minutes. 12 minutes until Madison Harper became Mrs. Sebastian Thornfield. 12 minutes until her life transformed into something predetermined, polished and utterly suffocating. She stood in the bride's dressing room, staring at her reflection in the full-length mirror. The wedding dress was a masterpiece, layers of ivory silk cascading like waterfalls, delicate lace tracing her collarbone, a cathedral train spreading behind her like angel wings. Her mother had cried when she first saw it. Her father had nodded approvingly, calculating the impression it would make on their society friends. But Madison felt like she was wearing a beautiful cage. Outside, 300 guests filled the historic St. Michael's Cathedral. Politicians, business moguls, old money families who measured worth in bloodlines and stock portfolios. The ceremony was less a wedding and more a merger. Harper Technologies joining forces with Thornfield Industries through matrimony. How romantic. Madison's hands trembled as she adjusted her veil. She'd met Sebastian exactly 4 times before today. 4 carefully orchestrated dinners where they discussed market trends and real estate portfolios while their parents watched like puppet masters. He was handsome enough. Polite, successful, completely devoid of anything resembling passion. And she was about to promise him forever. A knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Her maid of honor, Claire, peeked inside. The photographer wants a few shots before the ceremony. He's setting up in the garden. Madison nodded mechanically and followed Claire down the hallway. The cathedral's back garden was a photographer's dream. Stone archways covered in climbing roses, a marble fountain, sunlight filtering through old oak trees. A man stood with his back to her, adjusting a professional camera on a tripod. Dark hair slightly tousled. A simple black shirt rolled up to his forearms, focused entirely on the light meter in his hands. He turned, and Madison's breath caught. This wasn't the portly, cheerful photographer she'd met during the planning sessions. This man was young, maybe early 30s, with sharp cheekbones and intense green eyes that seemed to see straight through her expensive veil into her terrified heart. There was a mix-up. Our original photographer had a family emergency. I'm covering last minute. His voice was low, calm, with an edge that suggested he didn't particularly care about cathedral weddings or society brides. I'm Ethan Cross. Madison managed a small smile. Madison Harper, soon to be Thornfield, the words tasted bitter. He studied her for a moment longer than professionally appropriate. Lucky man. The way he said it didn't sound like a compliment. More like a question. More like he could see the invisible chains wrapped around her wrists. Shall we? Ethan gestured toward the archway. Madison positioned herself where he indicated, hands clasped, smile frozen. But Ethan lowered his camera. You don't have to do that. Do what? Pretend. His bluntness shocked her. Excuse me, I photograph a lot of weddings. I can tell the difference between a bride who's excited and one who's running on autopilot. You look like you're about to face a firing squad, not marry the love of your life. Madison's carefully constructed composure cracked. How dare you? You don't know anything about me or my situation. You're right. Ethan picked up his camera again, utterly unruffled. I just take pictures. But if you want them to look genuine, you might want to try feeling something other than dread. Anger flared in her chest, hot and unfamiliar. For weeks she'd been passive, accommodating, the perfect daughter executing the perfect plan. Now this stranger, this nobody photographer, dared to call her out. She stepped forward, heels clicking sharply on the stone path. You have no idea what you're talking about. My life, my choices, none of it concerns you. Then why are your hands shaking? Madison looked down. He was right. Her fingers trembled against the silk of her dress. She wanted to scream, to run, to do anything except walk down that aisle. Instead, she laughed. A short, desperate sound. Because in 10 minutes, I'm marrying a man I barely know to make my family happy. Because I've spent 26 years being the good daughter, and I don't know how to be anything else. Because I'm terrified that if I go through with this, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what I gave up. The confession spilled out before she could stop it. Ethan set his camera down entirely. Yup. Don't what? Don't marry him. Madison stared at him like he'd suggested she sprout wings and fly. I can't just not marry him. 300 people are waiting, My family. His family. The press. So, he stepped closer. I don't know you, Madison Harper, but I know what regret looks like. I've photographed enough fake smiles and empty vows to recognize when someone's about to make the biggest mistake of their life. Her heart pounded. Nobody. Just a guy who believes life's too short to live someone else's version of it. For one wild moment, Madison imagined it. Gathering up her ridiculous train and running, leaving Sebastian at the altar. I can't, she whispered. Then at least go in there with your eyes open. Ethan's voice softened. Don't lie to yourself about what this is. Before she could respond, Claire appeared again. Madison, they're ready for you. It's time. Madison looked at Ethan one last time. His green eyes held something she hadn't seen in weeks. Understanding without judgment. Permission to choose herself, but she didn't. She turned, lifted her chin, and walked back toward the cathedral. Toward duty, toward a life planned by everyone except her. Except halfway down the hallway, her steps slowed. The organ music drifted through the walls. Traditional, predictable, suffocating. Madison stopped, her reflection caught in a hallway mirror. A beautiful bride, a perfect stranger, and suddenly she couldn't walk down that aisle and promise forever to a man who didn't even know her favorite color. Couldn't live a scripted life just because it made everyone else comfortable. Her hands moved before her mind caught up. She yanked off the veil, pulled up the endless train, and ran. Back through the hallway, past a shocked Claire, through the garden out the side gate. She ran in a $30,000 wedding dress and cream silk heels, her carefully pinned hair coming loose, her heart racing with terror and exhilaration. She didn't have a plan, didn't have her phone or purse or any idea where she was going. She just ran until her lungs burned and her legs shook, and she found herself in a part of the city she didn't recognize. Small shops, colorful murals, people who looked at her like she was insane. Which she supposed she was. Madison ducked into an alley to catch her breath, leaning against the brick wall. What had she just done? Somewhere back at the cathedral, Sebastian was probably standing at the altar, confused. Her mother was likely having a meltdown. The guests were whispering. And she was here, alone, free, terrified. Footsteps approached. Madison tensed, but then Ethan appeared at the alley entrance, camera bag slung over his shoulder, completely unsurprised. I figured you might need this. He held out her small clutch purse. You left it in the garden. How did you find it? You're wearing a wedding dress in the middle of downtown. You're not exactly inconspicuous. Despite everything, Madison laughed. A real laugh, not the polite society version. It felt strange and wonderful. Now what? Ethan leaned against the opposite wall. That's entirely up to you. You're the one who just ran away from your own wedding. Madison slid down to sit on the ground, not caring about the dirt on her dress. I have no idea. I don't even know where I am. You're on 5th and Morrison. There's a decent coffee shop around the corner if you want to think somewhere less alley-like. She looked up at him. Why are you helping me? He shrugged. Maybe I'm a sucker for people who finally choose themselves. Or maybe I just want to see how this story ends. Madison considered. She could call her parents. Could go back and apologize. Could stuff herself back into the life she'd been running from. Or she could stand up, brush off her wedding dress, and walk toward the unknown with a stranger who seemed to understand her better in 5 minutes than Sebastian had in 4 carefully planned dinners. She stood. I could use some coffee. Ethan's mouth curved into the first real smile she'd seen from him. This way. They walked side by side through streets Madison had never noticed before. A runaway bride and a mysterious photographer. And for the first time in years, Madison felt like she could breathe. The coffee shop was nothing like the places Madison usually frequented. No marble counters or designer pastries displayed under glass. Instead, mismatched furniture, local art on brick walls, the rich smell of fresh ground beans, and a barista with purple hair who didn't even blink at Madison's wedding dress. Rough day, the barista asked while making their drinks. You could say that. Madison managed to smile. The usual response when you flee your own wedding. Ethan chose a corner table away from the window. Madison sank into a worn leather chair, her dress pooling around her like a silk avalanche. For several minutes, neither spoke. She sipped her latte and tried to process what she'd just done. Ethan didn't push. He simply sat across from her, drinking black coffee, patient. Finally, Madison broke the silence. I don't even know who I am without the script. What do you mean? Her hands wrapped around the warm cup. I've spent my entire life being exactly who everyone expected. Model student, obedient daughter, future society wife. I went to the right schools, joined the right clubs, dated the right kind of men. And somewhere along the way, I stopped asking what I actually wanted. Ethan listened without interrupting. Today was supposed to be the final scene. Madison continued. Marriage to Sebastian, kids in a few years, charity galas, summer homes, the whole predetermined package. And I was going along with it until you asked if I was pretending. That one question made me realize I've been pretending my whole life. So what do you actually want? The answer felt impossible. Madison stared into her coffee. I don't know. Isn't that pathetic? I'm 26 years old and I have no idea who I am or what I want. Ethan set down his cup. Not pathetic, just honest. Most people never admit that much. Who are you? She asked suddenly. Really? Besides a photographer who covers last-minute weddings. He considered. I'm someone who learned the hard way that other people's plans for your life are never worth the cost. Cryptic. He smiled slightly. 5 years ago, I was engaged, working for my father's law firm, on track to make partner, living the life that looked perfect on paper. Then my fiancée died in a car accident, and everything I thought mattered just evaporated. I realized I'd been building someone else's dream, not mine. So you became a photographer? I became myself. Took time, but I figured out that capturing real moments mattered more than billing hours and impressing clients I didn't like. The vulnerability in his voice matched her own. Madison felt the connection like a thread pulling taut between them. I'm sorry about your fiancé. Thank you. He met her eyes. It taught me that life's too uncertain to waste pretending. That's why I said something in the garden. I know it wasn't my place, but I couldn't watch you walk into something that was clearly wrong. I'm glad you did. Madison surprised herself with the Ethan turned to leave, then paused. Madison? Yes? For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. She watched him walk away, disappearing into the evening crowd, and standing there in her thrift store clothes, phone full of angry messages, future completely uncertain, Madison felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. That night, in a modest hotel room far from her family's mansion, Madison sat on the bed and finally let herself cry, not from regret, from relief, from fear, from the overwhelming weight of freedom. She pulled out Ethan's card. Simple white cardstock, Ethan Cross, photography, and a phone number. Tomorrow, she'd have to face because 5 years ago, when my world fell apart, I had people who helped me figure out who I was underneath the expectations. I'm returning the favor. And because maybe I see something in you worth helping. What do you see? Someone brave enough to run, brave enough to start over. Someone who deserves a chance to become whoever she's meant to be. Madison's throat tightened. Thank you. They spent the morning strategizing. Ethan helped her set up a new email address, separate from her family's influence. They searched for job openings, gallery assistant positions, museum internships, anything entry-level in art. By noon, she'd sent out 5 applications. It felt simultaneously productive and terrifying. You should eat something besides croissants, Ethan said. There's a good sandwich place nearby. Are you always this helpful to runaway brides? Only the interesting ones. They walked to a small deli tucked between vintage shops. Madison felt lighter in her thrift store clothes, anonymous in the crowd. And I felt like I was drowning. You weren't crazy. Ethan's voice was certain. You were just finally listening to yourself. As the night deepened, Madison realized she felt safe here, not just physically, but emotionally. Ethan didn't expect her to be anyone except who she was. Didn't judge her for running or falling apart or having no plan. He simply accepted her. When she finally went to bed, she lay awake thinking about green eyes and unexpected kindness and the strange way life could shift in a single day. Yesterday, she'd been Madison Harper, society bride. Today, she was just Madison, figuring out what came next. And somehow, that felt like exactly where she needed to be. The first week living with Ethan was an adjustment. Madison had never lived with anyone outside her family, and certainly never with a man who wasn't related to her. But Ethan made it easy. He gave her space but was there when she needed company. Cooked breakfast without making it weird. Left notes on the counter when he went out for shoots. Call if you need anything. Back by 6. She started building a routine. Mornings were for job applications and portfolio work. Afternoons, she explored the city on foot, seeing neighborhoods she'd never noticed. Evenings, she and Ethan ate dinner together, swapping stories about their days. It felt surprisingly domestic, surprisingly right. On Thursday, Madison got her first interview. A small gallery needed a front desk assistant. The pay was minimal. The position barely qualified as professional, but Madison treated it like the most important meeting of her life. She borrowed a blazer from a thrift store, rehearsed answers, researched the gallery's recent exhibitions. "How do I look?" she asked Ethan before leaving. He looked up from his camera equipment, and his expression made her pulse quicken. Professional. Capable. Like someone who knows her worth. Not like someone running from an altar, like someone running towards something better. The interview lasted 30 minutes. The gallery owner, a sharp-eyed woman named Helen, asked about her experience. Madison was honest, admitted her background was privileged, but emphasized her genuine passion for art. "I know I don't have traditional experience," Madison said carefully, "but I'm willing to work hard, learn everything, and prove myself." Helen studied her. "You're Madison Harper, the runaway bride." Madison's stomach dropped. Yes. Must have taken guts to walk away from all that money and status. It did. Then maybe you've got what it takes to handle difficult artists and demanding collectors. Helen smiled slightly. "You start Monday." Madison left the gallery in shock. She'd gotten the job on her own merit. Without her family name smoothing the path, the accomplishment felt sweeter than anything she'd achieved before. She called Ethan immediately. "I got it, told you." His voice was warm. "Celebration dinner?" "Absolutely." That night, Ethan took her to a rooftop restaurant. Nothing like the stuffy places her family frequented. This was casual, string lights overhead, the city sprawling below, good food without pretension. To new beginnings, Ethan raised his glass. Madison clinked hers against his. To people who believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. Their eyes held. Madison felt the now familiar flutter in her chest. Over the past week, she'd caught herself noticing things. The way Ethan concentrated when editing photos, brow furrowed, his rare, genuine laugh, the kindness in every small gesture. She was falling for him. The realization was terrifying. She'd just escaped one relationship, had no business starting another. And yet, every time Ethan smiled at her, every casual touch when he handed her coffee, every late-night conversation, she fell a little further. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan set down his fork. "Anything. Why haven't you dated since your fiancé? If it's been 5 years. He was quiet, choosing words carefully. "I haven't met anyone who made me want to. Until maybe now." Madison's breath caught. "Ethan, I know the timing's terrible." He continued. "You're rebuilding your life. The last thing you need is complications. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel something. You're smart, brave, real in a way most people aren't. And I can't help wanting to know you better." Madison's heart raced. "I feel it too. But I'm scared. I just ran from a wedding. My judgment is clearly questionable. Running from the wrong person shows excellent judgment." Ethan's voice was gentle. "But I understand if you need time. I'm not going anywhere." Relief and disappointment warred in her chest. "Thank you for understanding." They finished dinner with an unspoken agreement hanging between them. Something was building, but neither would push. Not yet. Monday arrived, and Madison started work. The gallery was small but prestigious. Helen ran it with exacting standards, and Madison learned quickly that her new boss suffered no fools. The work was demanding, managing schedules, handling temperamental artists, dealing with wealthy collectors who expected perfection. Everything Madison's upbringing had prepared her for, except now she was doing it for herself. She loved it. For the first time, she felt useful, capable, like she was building something real. Ethan photographed an opening at the gallery that first week. Madison watched him work, impressed by his professionalism. He moved through the crowd, capturing candid moments, somehow invisible and essential at once. "You're good at this," she said when he packed up. "Helps that I have good subject matter." He showed her a shot he'd taken of her earlier, laughing with a client. She looked confident, alive. "That's how I see you," Ethan said quietly. Madison's chest tightened. "You make me feel like that person is real." She is. More real than the version who was going to marry Sebastian. Their faces were close now, the gallery emptying around them. Ethan's hand lifted, almost touching her face, then dropped. I should go. Let you finish closing up. Wait. Madison caught his wrist. His pulse jumped under her fingers. She stepped closer, heart pounding. Ethan. They'd been dancing around this for 2 weeks, sleeping under the same roof, sharing meals, building something fragile and precious. And Madison was tired of being afraid. I know the timing isn't perfect, she whispered. I know I'm a mess and still figuring out my life, but I don't want to wait anymore. Ethan's eyes darkened. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He kissed her, soft at first, questioning. Then deeper when she responded, pulling him closer. It was nothing like the polite, passionless kisses she'd shared with Sebastian. This was fire and need and finally coming home. When they broke apart, both breathless, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since the garden, when you were wearing that ridiculous wedding dress. Knew it, especially then. Madison laughed, giddy and light. Take me home. They barely made it through the apartment door before kissing again. Ethan backed her against the wall, hands framing her face, kissing her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. Madison's fingers tangled in his hair, every nerve alive. Are you sure about this? Ethan pulled back slightly, giving her space to think. Yes. Madison's voice was steady despite her racing heart. I'm sure about you. He carried her to his bedroom. They undressed slowly, learning each other. Ethan traced her skin like she was something precious, and Madison felt beautiful, not like a trophy or a society ornament, like a woman chosen and wanted for herself. Make love to me, she whispered. Ethan's response was tender and passionate, overwhelming in the best way. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his fingers trailing patterns on her shoulder. No regrets? He asked quietly. None. Madison smiled against his skin. You? Only that I didn't kiss you sooner. She tilted her face up to meet his eyes. I think I'm falling for you. I know I'm falling for you. Ethan kissed her forehead. Have been since you ran down that alley in heels. Madison snuggled closer, content in a way she'd never experienced. This was what love should feel like. Chosen, equal, real. Outside, the city hummed with life. But inside Ethan's arms, Madison had found something she'd been searching for without knowing. Home. Not a place. A person, and the person who saw her, believed in her, loved her exactly as she was. And for the first time since running from that altar, Madison knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. 3 months passed in a blur of work, laughter, and falling deeper in love. Madison thrived at the gallery. Helen promoted her to assistant curator, trusting her with bigger responsibilities. She organized exhibitions, courted artists, built relationships with collectors. The work was challenging and fulfilling in ways her old life never was. And every night she came home to Ethan. They fell into an easy rhythm. Morning coffee together before she headed to the gallery and he left for shoots. Evenings cooking dinner, talking about their days. Weekends exploring the city, taking photographs, making love until the early hours. Madison had never been happier. But the past had a way of catching up. On a rainy Tuesday, Madison was setting up for a new exhibition when a familiar voice made her freeze. Well, this is unexpected. She turned slowly. Her mother stood in the gallery entrance, impeccably dressed, expression cold. Mom. Madison's voice came out steadier than she felt. Your father and I have been trying to reach you for months. I needed space. Space. Her mother's tone could have cut glass. You humiliated us, destroyed your future. And for what? To play at working in this little shop. It's a gallery, and I'm building a real career. On whose dime? Madison straightened. My own. I haven't touched the family money since I left. Her mother's eyes narrowed. How very noble. And are you living on your own as well? Or did you find some man to take care of you? I'm with someone, yes. Someone who respects me and supports my choices. Someone who doesn't see me as a business transaction. Her mother stepped closer, voice dropping. You threw away everything we built for you. Sebastian was willing to forgive you, willing to try again. But you've been living with some photographer like a common. Don't. Madison's voice turned to steel. Don't finish that sentence. Ethan is worth 100 Sebastians. He loves me for who I am, not what my name can do for him. Love, her mother laughed sharply. You think love pays bills? Provide security. You're living in a fantasy, Madison. Eventually, reality will hit and you'll realize what you gave up. I already know what I gave up. A life where I was miserable, where every choice was made for me. I don't regret leaving. Helen emerged from the office, sensing tension. Is there a problem? Mrs. Harper turned her judgment on the gallery owner. You're Helen Ortiz. I've heard of you. Small operation. Madison's settling for quite the downgrade. Helen's smile was razor sharp. Madison is my best employee. Talented, hardworking, and genuinely passionate about art. Qualities that can't be bought with family money. Before Mrs. Harper could respond, the gallery door opened again. Ethan walked in, camera bag over his shoulder, and stopped when he saw the confrontation. Everything okay? He moved to Madison's side instinctively. Mrs. Harper's gaze raked over him. You must be the photographer. Ethan Cross. He didn't offer his hand. Madison's told me about you. I'm sure. Her mother's disdain was palpable. Tell me, Mr. Cross, what exactly are your intentions with my daughter? To love and support her. Ethan's voice was calm, to help her build the life she wants instead of forcing her into one she doesn't. How refreshing. Pretending noble intentions while living off her trust fund. Remote consultant for international exhibitions with a promise that her position would be waiting when she returned. You've earned this, Helen said. Go explore. Bring back fresh perspectives. Madison threw herself into preparations. Fred, researching Barcelona's art scene, brushing up on her Spanish, coordinating logistics. Ethan handled the contract details while shooting local projects to save money for the transition. They were building something together, a partnership based on mutual support and shared dreams. 2 weeks before departure, Madison received an unexpected call. Ms. Harper? This is Richard Chen from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We received your application from several months ago. There's an opening in our European Acquisitions Department. We'd like to interview you. Madison nearly dropped her phone. The Metropolitan Museum. One of the most prestigious institutions in the world. The kind of position her old self would have killed for. I'm actually relocating to Barcelona, she said carefully. Even better. Mr. Chen sounded pleased. The position is based in our Barcelona satellite office. We're expanding our European presence and need someone with your background. Art history degree, gallery experience, international perspective. Would you be available for a video interview this week? Madison scheduled it immediately. That night, she told Ethan, barely able to contain her excitement. He spun her around the apartment. This is incredible. Everything's coming together. The interview was intense. 3 rounds, questions about European art movements, acquisition strategies, international relations. Madison drew on every bit of knowledge from her education and recent gallery work. She was honest about her unconventional path. I left a life that looked perfect on paper to build something real. That journey taught me resilience, creativity, and the courage to take risks. Qualities I'd bring to this position. A week later, the offer came. Good salary, comprehensive benefits, work she'd genuinely love. Madison accepted immediately. Their last night in the apartment, surrounded by packed boxes, felt bittersweet. This place had been her sanctuary, where she'd rebuilt herself, fallen in love, discovered who she could be. We'll come back. Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind. This isn't goodbye to the city. Just see you later. Madison leaned into him. Thank you for everything, for seeing me when I was invisible to myself. You did the hard work. He kissed her neck. I just had the privilege of watching you become who you were always meant to be. They made love one last time in the empty apartment, slow and reverent. Afterward, lying tangled together on an air mattress, Madison felt profound gratitude. 6 months ago, she'd been a terrified bride running from a predetermined life. Now she was a woman with a career, a partner she loved, and an adventure ahead. The flight to Barcelona was long but exciting. Ethan held her hand during takeoff, and Madison watched her old life shrink below. No fear. Just anticipation. Their Barcelona apartment was in the Gothic quarter. Old stone walls, arched windows overlooking narrow streets, morning light that made everything glow. It was small but perfect, our home. Madison breathed, taking in the space. Ethan pulled her close. Anywhere with you is home. They spent the first weeks exploring. Madison started her new position, diving into work with European collectors and artists. The museum team welcomed her warmly, impressed by her fresh perspective and genuine passion. Ethan's photography contract kept him busy shooting galleries, architectural projects, cultural events. But every evening they reunited. Sometimes cooking in their tiny kitchen, sometimes exploring tapas bars, sometimes just walking through ancient streets, marveling at their luck. One Saturday, they took a train to a coastal town. White buildings, blue water, sunshine that felt like honey on skin. They rented a small boat and drifted, talking about everything and nothing. "I never thought I could be this happy," Madison said, trailing her hand in the water. Ethan watched her with such tenderness it made her chest ache. "You deserve every bit of it. Do you ever regret it, leaving your old life?" Never. She was certain that life wasn't mine. This one is. That evening, as the sun set over the Mediterranean, Ethan steered the boat to a quiet cove. He dropped anchor and turned to Madison with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What?" She laughed. "You look nervous?" He took her hands. "Madison Harper, 6 months ago you ran from a wedding and accidentally collided with my life. Best collision I ever had." She squeezed his fingers. "These months with you have been the most real, most beautiful of my life." Ethan continued. "You're brave, passionate, genuine. You challenge me and support me and make every day better. I love you more than I knew was possible." Madison's heart raced. "Ethan." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Her breath stopped. "I know the timing might seem fast. I know you just escaped one engagement, but this is different." Ethan opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. "I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow or next month. I'm asking if you'll consider building a life with me. A real one, based on choice and love and partnership. Will you marry me?" Madison's tears spilled over. The sunset painted everything gold, the water lapping gently against the boat. This moment was nothing like the cathedral, the predetermined ceremony, the suffocating expectations. This was choice, pure and simple. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, laughing through tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." Ethan slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, deep and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both grinning like fools, Madison looked at the ring. "It's perfect. It was my grandmother's," Ethan said softly. "She told me to give it to someone who chose me for who I am, not what I could provide. I think she would have loved you." Madison kissed him again. "I love you." So much. They stayed in the cove until stars appeared, talking about the future. Not a predetermined plan, but possibilities. Maybe stay in Barcelona longer. Maybe travel more. Maybe eventually return home, or maybe make Europe their permanent base. Children someday if they both wanted, but no pressure, no timeline. Just choice. At night, back in their apartment, they celebrated. Ethan carried her to bed, making love to his fiancée with reverence and passion. Afterward, Madison traced the ring on her finger, still hardly believing it. "This time, I'm running towards something, not away." Ethan pulled her close. "And I'm running with you." The next morning, Madison called Helen. The gallery owner squealed with genuine delight. "I knew the photographer was special." "When's the wedding?" "We haven't decided." Madison smiled. "Something small. Just people who matter. No 300 guests or political maneuvering. Just us." "Perfect." Helen approved. "You've come so far, Madison." "I'm proud of you. Thank you for believing in me when I was just starting. You believed in yourself. I just gave you space to prove it." Madison also called Claire, her former maid of honor. Her friend shrieked, "Oh my God, I'm so happy for you. This is what you deserve. Real love, real choice." "How are your parents handling your Barcelona move?" "We don't talk much," Madison admitted. "Mom sends occasional emails suggesting I come home. I respond politely but firmly. They'll come around eventually. Or they won't. Either way, I'm okay." That evening, Madison video called her parents. Time to share the news. Her mother answered, her father in the background. Both looked older, tired. Madison, her mother's voice was guarded. "What is it? I wanted to tell you something. I'm engaged." To her mother's expression flickered. To the photographer, "Yes, to Ethan, we're happy, Mom." "Really happy." There was a long silence. Then her father spoke. "Are you sure about this?" "More sure than I've ever been." Madison's voice was steady. "I love him. He loves me. We're building a life based on partnership and respect. Everything I didn't have with Sebastian." Mrs. Harper looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Madison's face stopped her. "You look different." "What?" Her mother's tone softened slightly. "You look truly happy." "I am. And I'd love for you to be part of this. If you can accept my choices and the man I've chosen." Her parents exchanged glances. Finally, her mother nodded. "We'll try. It won't be easy for us to understand, but you're our daughter. We love you." Madison's throat tightened. That's all I needed to hear. "Thank you." The call ended with tentative peace. Not full reconciliation, but a start. After hanging up, Madison turned to Ethan. They're going to try. He wrapped his arms around her. I'm glad. Family's important even when they're complicated. The next months in Barcelona were a dream. Madison thrived at the museum. Ethan's photography garnered international attention. They explored Spain and beyond. Paris, Rome, Amsterdam. Collecting experiences instead of things, building memories instead of meeting others' expectations. They planned a small wedding for the following spring. Just close friends, Helen, Claire, Ethan's sister. A simple ceremony in a Barcelona garden. Personal vows, celebration of choice and love. No pretense, no performance, just two people promising forever because they genuinely wanted to. The wedding day was perfect. Madison wore a simple white dress, flowers in her hair. Ethan looked at her like she'd hung the stars. When the officiant asked if she took Ethan as her husband, Madison's voice rang clear and certain. I do. No hesitation. No doubt, just choice. They kissed as husband and wife, and Madison felt complete. This was what marriage should be. Partnership between equals. Love freely given and joyfully received. At the reception, Madison pulled Ethan aside. Thank you for finding me in that garden, for asking if I was pretending, for giving me permission to run. He cupped her face. Thank you for being brave enough to run, for choosing yourself, for choosing us. I'd choose you 1,000 times. She whispered. In every lifetime. Then let's make this one extraordinary. They danced under string lights, surrounded by people who genuinely loved them. No society judgment, no family politics, just celebration. Later, alone in their apartment, Ethan carried Madison over the threshold. Our first night as husband and wife. She kissed him. The first of thousands. They made love as a married couple, and it felt different, more sacred. A promise sealed not just with words, but with bodies and hearts completely intertwined. Afterward, lying in Ethan's arms, Madison reflected on the journey. From terrified bride to runaway to independent woman to wife. Every step necessary. Every choice leading her here. You know what's funny? She said softly. What? If I'd married Sebastian, I'd be Mrs. Sebastian Thornfield right now. Probably in some mansion, planning charity galas, living someone else's life. Instead, I'm Madison Cross. Working a job I love, married to a man who sees me living a life I chose. And I wouldn't change a single thing. Ethan kissed her forehead. Best decision you ever made. Running. Madison smiled. Second best. Best was stopping to talk to a photographer in a garden. And fair point. He grinned. Though I like to think I'm pretty persuasive, you gave me permission to save myself. That's different. That's everything. They fell asleep tangled together, husband and wife, partners in every sense. And Madison knew deep in her bones that she'd finally found what she'd been searching for all along. Not a predetermined happily ever after, but a chosen one. Built on love, respect, and the courage to run toward the life she deserved. A year later, Madison stood in the Barcelona Museum of Modern Art, overseeing the opening of an exhibition she'd curated from start to finish. Emerging European artists. Voices of a new generation. It was her most ambitious project yet. Months of work culminating in this moment. The gallery hummed with conversation. Critics, collectors, artists mingling beneath carefully positioned lights that made each piece glow. Madison moved through the crowd answering questions, introducing people, glowing with professional pride. Across the room, Ethan photographed the event, but every few minutes his lens found her. Madison caught him watching and smiled. Even after a year of marriage, that look still made her heart skip. Excuse me, a voice interrupted. Madison turned to find an elegant older woman studying one of the paintings. Are you the curator? Yes. Madison extended her hand. Madison Cross. The woman's eyes lit with recognition. Annabelle Rothschild. I'm on the board of the Tate Modern in London. This exhibition is remarkable. Your thematic choices, the way you've grouped these artists, it's fresh. Innovative. Thank you. Madison felt a flutter of excitement. The Tate Modern was one of the world's most prestigious museums. Mrs. Rothschild pulled out a business card. We're looking for a new deputy director of contemporary acquisitions, based in London, but with travel throughout Europe. Your work here suggests you'd be perfect. Would you be interested in discussing it? Madison's mind raced. London, a massive career leap, but also, she glanced at Ethan. What about their life in Barcelona? May I think about it? Of course. Mrs. Rothschild smiled. Take your time. But I hope you'll consider it. After the woman walked away, Madison tucked the card into her pocket, mind spinning. That evening, after the exhibition closed successfully, Madison and Ethan walked home through lamplit streets. "You were incredible tonight." Ethan squeezed her hand. "That exhibition is going to make waves." Madison took a breath. "I got a job offer." He stopped walking. "What? Where?" "The Tate Modern. Deputy director position. It's huge, Ethan. Dream job territory." His expression was unreadable. "In London." "Yes." Madison searched his face. "Which means we'd have to move again. Leave Barcelona." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he cupped her face. "Tell me what you want." "What I want." She laughed shakily. "I want to hear what you think. This is your career, your dream." Ethan's voice was firm. "If you want this, we'll make it work. I can photograph anywhere. London has an incredible art scene. We'll find an apartment, build a new life there, just like we did here. You'd really move for me?" Without hesitation. He kissed her softly. "Madison, you ran from a life where your dreams didn't matter. I'm not about to build a marriage where they don't. We're partners. Your success is my success." Tears pricked her eyes. "I love you so much. Then take the job. Let's go to London. Make the Tate Modern realize how lucky they are." Through tears and kissed him. "How did I get this lucky? You chose yourself." Ethan smiled. Everything else followed. 2 months later, they moved to London. A cozy flat in Notting Hill with morning light and a view of the park. Madison started at the Tate, diving into work that challenged and fulfilled her. Ethan's photography career flourished in the vibrant London art scene. They built a new life, just as they'd built the one in Barcelona. New favorite restaurants, weekend routines, friends who became family. But the foundation remained the same. Partnership, love, choice. One evening, 6 months into the London chapter, Madison came home to find candles lit throughout the apartment, soft music playing. Ethan standing in the kitchen with takeout from her favorite Indian restaurant. "What's all this?" She laughed, setting down her bag. "Celebration." He pulled her close. "When you successfully acquired that controversial installation everyone said was impossible. 2, my photography book got picked up by a major publisher. And 3, we've been married for over 2 years, and I still can't believe you're mine." Madison wrapped her arms around his neck. "I'm definitely yours, as long as you're mine. Always." They ate dinner curled up on the couch, talking about their days. Madison mentioned a collector who'd tried to lowball a young artist and how she'd negotiated a fair price. Ethan shared news about a gallery show in Berlin that wanted to feature his work. It was ordinary and extraordinary at once. The life they'd chosen, full of small moments that mattered. Later, in bed, Ethan traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "I've been thinking. Dangerous," Madison teased. "About what, kids?" He said quietly. "Not right now, necessarily, but someday. Would you want that?" Madison turned to face him. The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. She thought about it. A child raised by 2 people who chose each other, who valued authenticity over appearance, who knew how to fight for what mattered. "Yes," she said softly. "Someday. When we're ready, I'd love that." Ethan's smile was radiant. He kissed her, and the conversation dissolved into touch, into love reaffirmed without words. The next morning, Madison woke early. Ethan still slept beside her, one arm thrown across her waist. She studied his face in the soft light, this man who'd seen her at her most terrified and offered not judgment but possibility. Who'd supported every dream, every risk, every choice. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. "Lunch next month when we're in London. Your father and I would like to see you both." Madison smiled. Over the past 2 years, her relationship with her parents had slowly healed. Not back to what it was, but something new, built on mutual respect rather than expectation. She'd learned to set boundaries. They'd learned to accept her choices. It would never be perfect, but it was real. She typed back, "We'd love that." "Looking forward to it." Beside her, Ethan stirred awake. "Morning." He pulled her closer. "What are you smiling about?" "My parents want to have lunch, and I'm actually looking forward to it." "That's progress." He kissed her shoulder. "Think they've finally accepted that I'm not going anywhere. I think they've finally accepted that I'm happy. That this life, this marriage, it's exactly what I need." "Good, because I'm not giving you back." Madison laughed and rolled to face him. "Lucky for you. I'm not going anywhere either." They made love slowly, sunlight streaming through the windows. Afterward, getting ready for work, Madison caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She looked different from the terrified bride in that cathedral dressing room 3 years ago. Older, yes, but also more confident, more herself. The wedding dress was long gone, donated to a thrift shop where hopefully another woman found it. But Madison had kept one thing from that day: a single white rose from her bouquet, pressed and framed. Not as a reminder of what she'd lost, but what she'd gained: the courage to run, to choose, to become. Ethan appeared behind her in the mirror, straightening his tie, ready for another day of making the art world better, always. She turned and adjusted his collar, ready to make London fall in love with your photographs. He grinned. With you by my side? Absolutely. They left the apartment hand in hand. Madison headed to the Tate, Ethan to his shoot across town. But they'd meet back here tonight, in the home they'd built, the life they'd chosen. Later that day, during a meeting about an upcoming acquisition, Madison's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her look. It was a photo. Madison froze. The image showed her from 3 years ago, wedding day, running through the cathedral garden in that enormous dress, veil flying behind her, face a mixture of terror and determination. And behind her, slightly out of focus, a man with a camera. Ethan. He'd captured her before they'd officially met, before the garden conversation. This moment of her choosing freedom. The text beneath read, "Thought you might want this. You look like someone becoming herself. Keep running toward the life you deserve." Madison's eyes filled with tears. She saved the photo immediately and sent back, "Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for running with me." His response came quickly. "Always. Tonight, let's look through old photos. Remind ourselves how far we've come." Madison smiled through tears and returned to her meeting. But the image stayed with her, a reminder that every ending was a beginning. That running from the wrong thing meant running toward the right one. That night, true to his word, Ethan pulled out his archive. They sat on the floor surrounded by photographs. The alley where they'd first really talked. The coffee shop where she decided to start over. Barcelona sunsets and London rain. Wedding day smiles and quiet morning moments. Their life captured in images. "This one's my favorite." Ethan handed her a print. It showed Madison in their Barcelona apartment, laughing at something off camera, morning light haloing her hair. She looked radiant. Free. Happy. "Why this one?" He leaned close. "Because you're completely yourself, no performance, no pretending. That's just Madison, pure and real and beautiful." She kissed him. "Thank you for documenting our story. Thank you for being the story worth documenting." They made love on the living room floor, surrounded by proof of their journey. And afterward, wrapped in blankets in each other, Madison felt overwhelming gratitude for the courage to run, for a photographer who'd seen her when she was invisible to herself, for a love built on choice and partnership and truth. "I don't regret anything," she whispered into the darkness. "Not the running, not the fear, not the hard work to rebuild. It all led here. To you." Ethan held her tighter. "Best wedding I never photographed." Madison laughed. "You photographed me running away from it. That counts. Fair point." He kissed her head. "Though for the record, our actual wedding was much better." Smaller guest list. "Better groom." She swatted his chest playfully. "Much better groom. Best one I could have chosen." They fell asleep there on the floor, surrounded by memories and possibilities. And when Madison dreamed, it wasn't of cathedrals or predetermined paths. It was of futures yet unwritten, of choices yet unmade, of a life continually chosen day after day, with a partner who saw her, loved her, ran with her toward everything they were becoming. The girl who ran from her wedding had found something more valuable than any predetermined, happily ever after. She'd found herself. And in the process, she'd found a love worth running toward, a partnership worth building, a life worth living, on her terms, with her choice, forever hers. 3 years after running down that cathedral aisle, Madison Cross stood in her London flat, morning coffee in hand, looking at the photograph of herself in flight. That terrified bride seemed like a stranger now, yet Madison remembered her with compassion. She'd been brave enough to run, and that bravery had led to everything. Ethan emerged from the bedroom, sleep-rumpled and smiling. "What are you thinking about?" "How far I've come." She turned to him. "How far we've come." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin on her shoulder. "Any regrets?" "Not a single one," and it was true. Every difficult choice, every scary step, every moment of uncertainty had been worth it. Because Madison had learned the most important lesson of all. The only life worth living was one you chose for yourself, and she'd chosen well. What did you think of their story? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what's your rating? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories, and check out more emotional stories by clicking on the end screen.